What is going on, you guys? Bashtian here, and today I'm coming at you with a Labrynth deck profile. Labrynth is the second archetype that we are going to be covering out of Tactical Masters, or the first, again, depending on which order I want to go ahead and decide this in. That is something that I tend to struggle with quite a bit, but I assure you guys all these will get uploaded ASAP. Of course, post the YCS that is happening currently in, I believe, Brazil at the moment, so that's gonna be very, very exciting. These decks are coming out right before the YCS in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, so it's gonna be really, really exciting to see if these decks are actually gonna be played in that tournament. I highly doubt it, but in the case that they are, yay, these are getting released after that YCS. So in case you have seen them, then again, that's great, that's fantastic. If you have not, then oh well, we'll try again better next time. So the Labrynth archetype, though, the Labrynth archetype is probably going to be the most competitive coming out of Tactical Masters. Why do I say that? Because this deck has pretty much checks off a lot of the boxes that the others simply don't. It has good field presence, it has recursion, monster special summon themselves from the graveyard easy. It's easy to go ahead and search out and activate the field spell from the deck. It takes a lot less resources to go ahead and get stuff going. And if you get into a grind game with this deck, you will most likely lose just because of the amount of trap cards it will easily and very, very smoothly place from the field or graveyard back onto the field. So overall, I'm really liking the way this deck is operating. I really like this current build I'm going to show you guys, but if you guys want to go ahead and do me a huge favor by hitting that like button and that subscribe button before we get right into it, I really appreciate you. Now that we've done that, let's get right into it. Alright guys, time for the Labrynth deck profile. I'm really excited for this one, guys. I've been trying to cook up the best possible list for you guys. 40 card list, like I do like to stay with most of my deck profiles, guys. I do not like to go over 40 just because of consistency reasons and because my own mental state will absolutely go berserk if it does not amount to 40 cards. And believe me, I'm having enough trouble with Tearlament and Sprite keeping that at 40 cards, but my mental health aside, guys, let's get right into the deck profile. So first card that we have, we're going to play one copy of Lovely Labrynth of this Silver Castle. Now, this is going to be your boss monster for the deck, at least your main deck boss monster for the deck. Actually, a phenomenal card. So when your opponent cannot activate cards, you cannot activate monster effects in response to the activation of your normal trap cards, which is already really good, protecting your normal trap cards right off the bat. But also it has another effect. You can target a normal trap card in your graveyard, set it to your field, but it cannot activate its effects unless you control a fiend monster. Luckily enough for us, all of the Labrynth cards are fiend monsters. Also, we're getting a lot of really cool reprints in Tactical Masters overall. So definitely something to go ahead and check out if you want to go ahead and mix and mash. Now, with Lovely Labrynth of the Silver Castle, it has another effect. If another monster leaves the field by your normal trap, not your opponent's monster, not your monster, but if just a monster leaves the field because of a normal trap, by your normal trap I should say, destroy one card in your opponent's hand at random or on their field, which is really good in the event that your opponent only has one card in your hand. You already know what it is. So for example, if you're going up against Drytron and you know they have the Meteorus Drytron in their hands, go ahead and pop it. That way they don't get effect, and yes, even though they can still recur that card, you can still just go ahead and get rid of it overall. So really good effect already. Plus you can go ahead and choose either on a hand at random or on the field. So immediately pop ability, really good. Amazing stats, 2900, 1900. Always most likely going to be summoning this in attack mode, but just a really solid boss monster for the overall Labrynth archetype. Next, we got the little sweepers, as I like to call them. Is that weird? Probably. But anyway, so we have our first little sweeper. We have Ariane, the Labrynth Servant. Now, she lets you search for a fiend type monster, a special summoner, whereas Ariana lets you add a Labrynth card from your deck to your hand. So these play off hand in hand quite well. Ariane is going to be the better of the two just because it does search out Ariana. So Ariana, while being the more utilized card most likely, it is better to start out with Ariane, because if you go Ariane to summon Ariana, then you have two level 4s on the field, and you also have another Labrynth card in your hand, which could be Labrynth. It will be Welcome Labrynth, or any other any other Labrynth cards that are coming out Tactical Masters, for example, Labrynth Barrage, those type of other cards as well that are still really good but did not include in this deck profile either. But having 2 level 4 monsters on the board gets you access to some really cool plays I'll show you guys in just a little bit when we get to the extra deck. Next, guys, we have 3 copies I should say, of Labrynth Chandelier, and then 3 copies of Labrynth Stovey. So these cards I actually like quite a bit in a more pure version of Labrynth, just because they do special summon themselves back very easily. Or in the event of Labrynth Chandra, it adds itself back to the hands. You're always gaining card advantage. You're always having cards in your hand to go ahead and either search out normal spells, normal traps, or it allows you to also make sure you have your Labrynth cards all in your hand and ready to be accessed. But this deck realistically is not one that is going to be overly grindy. Yes, it is a trap-based deck, and normally trap-based decks are a little bit slower. This deck actually has really good effects to where you're always removing cards from your opponent's field. Therefore, this deck does have the ability to win within the first 3 or 4 turns if needed. Now, the monsters aren't necessarily small by any means. Ariane being 1800, Ariana being 1600, and Silver Castle being 2900. Now, there is also an Archfiend card coming out of this that gains 400 attack, multiplied by the number of different normal trap cards you have in your graveyard. Now, that's a card that I've considered playing around with this deck, but overall, I want to go ahead and just skip it for other cards' effects. Now, on to the other and last monster we have here in the main deck. We have 3 copies of Absolute King Backjack. Now, this card is absolutely crazy in this deck, only because there's so many ways to go ahead and get cards from the hand or deck to the graveyard. All of the Labrynth cards, not normal, effect monsters in the main deck, I should say. I'm looking at Chandra, I'm looking at Stovey, things like this. They all require you to discard a card in order to go ahead and be able to activate their effects. So you discard the Backjack, and then Backjack gains other effects to where it lets you stack yourself, it lets you mill the top card if it's a trap card, which after you stack yourself, it should be a trap card, lets you set it onto the field, activate that turn. So I think Absolute King Backjack is really crazy in this deck. I considered playing Foolish Burial. It put me at 41 cards. There's nothing else I wanted to take out, so honestly, we're just going to play the 3 Backjack and leave it at that. And that's going to be it for the monsters, guys. Now let's go on to the spells. We play 2 copies of Labrynth, which is a really cool spell. So the field spell for this deck is a lot less field spell reliant like Runic is, but it's still essential to the overall strategy. So Labrynth, first of all, gorgeous artwork. I just want to go ahead and get that right off the bat. If you activate or set a Welcome Labrynth normal trap, you can add this additional effect to that card's activation. And that effect being also after that destroy 1 card on the field. So really cool to go ahead and have that already. If you activate a non-Labrynth normal trap card, you can special summon 1 fiend monster from your hand or graveyard, and you can only use each effect of Labrynth once per turn. So every time you're activating Welcome Labrynth, which is then special summoning a Labrynth monster from your deck to the field, you're also getting the effect to pop a card, and then you activate any of the other trap cards. You are also able to get special summon a fiend monster from your hand or graveyard, which is going to be pretty much every single other card in your main deck and extra deck as well. Next, we play 3 copies of Ultimate Slayer. Ultimate Slayer is the phenomenal spell card that I think anyone who can afford it, very key phrasing, who can afford it should at least attempt to go ahead and pick this up, because this card is absolutely just crazy good. That's why I want to have a little bit more diversity in the extra deck as well, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But overall, I love Ultimate Slayer, and I think it's a crazy card, and especially in this deck, because this deck does struggle just a little bit going second, but having Ultimate Slayer in the main board along with Super Polymerization, let's not pretend this card is not here, is actually crazy to go ahead and have this. And you're not losing out on any consistency whatsoever, because this deck has that space to be able to run a few key cards to just elevate that level, the level playing field that much further. So as far as consistency goes, guys, we played 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Unfortunately, I believe Pot of Prosperity is going to be the best pot card for this, because you are going to want to have some key pieces here and there. Yes, hand advantage is good. This deck can play Pot of Extravagance because it's not reliant on the extra deck, but this specific version is a little bit more, so I want to go ahead and put Prosperity in here. If you guys want an updated version that plays Extravagance, that does not rely on the extra deck whatsoever, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll go ahead and have that out for you guys as soon as possible. For this deck, is definitely going to need 3 copies of Prosperity just to make sure that you stay consistent. So that's going to be it for these spells, guys. Now on to the traps. We played 3 copies of Labrynth. Labrynth, we already went over this card. Pretty much special summons a Labrynth from the deck and then can set itself again from the graveyard, so really, really good. Next, we played 3 copies of Archfiend's Ghastly Glitch, which is an interesting card. I actually kept forgetting that this is actually a Labrynth card because it doesn't say Labrynth anywhere on here. But if you control a Fiend monster, you can target 1 card on the field, destroy it, then send 1 Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard, which works with synergizes, I should say, extremely well with Backjack. So really, really cool card to have in your deck as well. Also, with the Labrynth monsters being very, very recyclable, it also helps the overall deck out as well in case you want to search for a specific card, but you only have a way to special summon from the graveyard also. Next, we have 3 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison. It's pretty self-explanatory. The card's absolutely busted. I think even a prismatic rare, prismatic secret rare is like $3 to $4 right now, so definitely worth picking up your playset. Next, 3 copies of Dogmatic Punishment. Not much really I can say about this card. Actually, so crazy that this card was in every single main deck for like a good year or so last year. So actually, I think that speaks for itself. Dogmatic Punishment is crazy. And then 3 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device because it is removing a monster from the field. And it's also not destroying, so for any card that cannot be destroyed by card effects, you also have Compulsory Evacuation Device to go ahead and yeet your opponent's monster the fluff out of there, and then you're good to go from there. Now that's gonna be it for the main deck, guys. We play a 40 card main deck like I said before. Now on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, I wanted to again have as much diversity with this as possible. So for the Link, I want to put Link, Xyz, and Fusion monsters. Synchro is not really as used right now. Sword Soul is kind of taking a back seat, so it's really not necessary at this point. If it does come back, I might take out like an Access Code Talker and put in like any Synchro just so Ultimate Slayer can be live against that as well, but it's really not necessary at the current time. So anyway, I play 1 copy of the Dark Charmer Gloomy. Crazy good card. Also, you are playing a whole bunch of darks in the deck, so really easy to use. Also really effective in the current meta as well. The Nightmare package as far as Phoenix and Unicorn also, but we also play Griffin as well. People forget about Griffin. Nightmare Griffin is a crazy good card, and with the amount of recursion you have in this deck with Stovey, special summon himself from the graveyard, and Chandra, special summon himself from the hand, and you have Welcome Labrynth, special summons from the deck, and you special summon a whole bunch of cards. I think Nightmare Griffin is going to be really crazy, especially in this deck, just because if this card is Link Summon, you can discard a card and then target 1 spell trap in your graveyard and set it to your field. It cannot be activated that turn, but this card is co-linked, yada yada, draw 1 card, nightmare stuff, right? So it lets you recur the spells traps that you already use and are in your graveyard. So I think this is going to be really cool just to go ahead and see how far you can really take this deck. If there's a card that you really need and it's in your graveyards, go ahead and set it onto your field again, and it's good to go for the following turn. I think that's going to be really essential. Definitely. Now for the monsters, guys, this is where it gets really fun and really spicy. So for the first Xyz, I play Abyss Dweller for an auto win against Tearlaments. I play the DDD package in here because it only requires 2 level 4 Fiend type monsters, which is absolutely amazing. So basically, I'm gonna go ahead and run this by you guys. So you summon Ariane, to special summon Ariana, search whatever, overlay these 2 into a King Caesar. That King Caesar has 2 materials. Then you special summon your Marksman Kingtail. The Marksman Kingtail has 3 materials. Then you overlay your Deus Machina, which is 4 materials. And then you overlay your AA Zeus, which is a 5 material Zeus that you can activate twice right off the bat, and then a 3rd time potentially by activating AA Zeus Sky Thunder's 2nd effect, which I know that's crazy. When I figured out this card has 2nd effect, I was like, that's absolutely nuts. I for some reason completely skipped out on that part where it allows you to attach a card from your hand, deck, or extract this card as a material, as long as another card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect by an opponent's card effect. So that's really cool to go ahead and see. Potentially being able to activate Double Zeus Sky Thunder 3 times is actually so crazy. So that's something I thought was really funny as well. Also being able to summon a 3k beat stick is just always, it's never a bad idea. Let's just be real here. Wrapping up the extra guys, coming up with some fusion monsters. We have Mud Dragon for a super poly target, along with double Garura, Wings of Resident Life, or again super poly targets. Garura is crazy good card right now, just because a lot of decks are playing same attribute, same type. I'm talking Tear Element Sprite, I'm talking Sword Soul does that nonsense, Punk does that nonsense. So you know, all these decks are susceptible to Garura. I know that Tear Elements actually plays it as a part of its combo piece, which is actually really interesting, but still, it's still a really good card to go ahead and at least have, because it does get rid of some really pesky cards your opponent might have. Next, to fully wrap up the extra deck, I played 2 copies of Elder Entity Ints for the Dogmatic Punishment combo, and air quotes because it's not, you know, you're activating a trap card, send Ints, activate Ints effect, pop. So that is going to be it for the deck profile, guys, for the Labrynth deck profile. I tried to keep this as pure as possible for you guys, but honestly, I think this deck is going to be a lot of fun moving forward. I think that, honestly, we're going to be seeing a lot of Labrynth, not as much Mr. Rune or Runic as I would have wanted, perhaps, but honestly, I like Labrynth quite a bit. I think it's going to be a really good control deck, so we'll see how it fares out here in the near future. Honestly, I think it's going to be one of the best trap decks that has come out in a while. And it's going to be on par with something like a Eldritch or a Paleozoic for its time, things like that. Not maybe not as floodgatey, because it doesn't really have floodgates, but it's a really cool interactive deck, and honestly I like it quite a bit. Also, the artwork on these cards is absolutely beautiful. You know what, I probably scratched that last line. I don't want to get too weird. Anyway, so I hope you guys did enjoy the video, guys. If you guys did enjoy, go ahead and leave a like down below, subscribe for more videos, guys. If you guys do enjoy the content, let me know by hitting the like, and let me know in the comment section down below what deck you guys want to see next, and I'll go ahead and check it out for you guys as soon as possible. But without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.